Hello, Illuminated Souls. I'm Brianne Drioni.
And I'm Tina Demore.
Welcome to Shamans After Dark. Today, we'll be continuing our discussion about the elements and talking about the powerful element of fire.
Yes. Fire is another element that we take for granted. It's made easily. The heat is part of the element of fire. It can be destructive, but also regenerative. It's the ultimate catalyst for change, life, death, and rebirth, and is the great transformer. I mean, if you think of the phoenix, it means like growing from these ashes and rebirthing yourself.
Rising up from your challenges, rebuilding yourself, reinventing yourself. I also think of the Tower card in tarot too. Like that is such a fire experience, all the lightning coming in and everything's burning, and you're rebuilding your foundations.
Yes. This is, I don't want to, I hate to say that I pick favorites, but I have always been drawn to fire. I remember I must have been about 4 years old. I was at my grandmother and grandfather's house, and they had a fire going in their chimney, the fireplace, and my grandfather did not put on the screen yet. And I was mesmerized by fire so much that I touched it. And it didn't feel hot. It felt like I was just touching, and it was just very much a light experience. And then I pulled away and I'm like, oh, wow, that really burns. And I just started screaming. But I remember this. I was so fascinated by it.
I still am fascinated, to this day of just watching the dancing of the flames and everything that comes up. And you can see so much in fire. One of the alluring things about fire is how mesmerizing it is when you can just stare at it and just go into an altered state and have an entire experience in relationship with the element of fire. And again, we did this a little differently than we have in the past. Tina journeyed and handled engaging with the spirit of fire to share questions and what fire kind of wants to illuminate for us so that we can kind of come back into a relationship and appreciation of fire in our day-to-day. Because it is, like you said before, Tina, we do take it for granted. We
do.
We don't have to fight so hard to make heat. Most of us come home and we don't have to fight to get that flame going and make sure we're keeping it going all night. A lot of us are very fortunate that we have heating, even with the outrageous prices we're paying for that stuff right now.
I know, but we're not able to even connect with the spirit of fire. I mean, when you gather around a fire, with especially shamanic circle, you're intending to connect with that spirit, and through the eyes of the helping spirits, you begin to see the spirit emerging and dancing in the flames. And when you turn on your furnace, we're not connecting with the spirit of fire. So, I think our ancestors did a better job because they were grateful.
Yeah, exactly. There was gratitude. And I was thinking of a time that we were all in circle together during our teacher training, and a colleague of ours and I were out making sure the fire was out after our sacred ceremony, and everybody else had gone back up to camp. And we're down there in the woods in the dark, and that primal fear that comes up about being alone in the woods, in the dark. There is no lights. We are out there in the woods by a lake, and we start hearing sploosh, sploosh. And we look at Jody and I look at each other like, what is that? It sounded really loud. And she's like, hurry up, put out. We finished making sure the fire was out and safe, and we must have booked it back up like, oh my goodness.
In pitch dark.
Dark. It was like every scary horror movie that you've seen of like the two chicks in the woods, like, something was going to happen. I was just waiting for the music. And
so what did you actually find out that the sploosh was?
Bullfrogs jumping down off the trees. And they were sitting on a branch like, hey, Frank, watch this. And they must have just like dropped right in and then watch us freak out. So we were in this beautiful ceremony, and at the end of it, we're all like, whoo, in the space. And we just remember, like, when that fire was out, when that light was extinguished, we were in the pitch dark, couldn't see anything. We're trying to, take care of it. And it's a primal thing. It's a primal element. And I think, our ancestors were so vulnerable, alone in the dark without that fire source for food, for heat, for light, and, to kind of protect against predators.
Right.
And that is an ancestral memory that is still there, that I think everyone who's out in the woods in the dark kind of feels a little vulnerable. And you're like, okay.
Well, two things I want to say. Well, first of all, what were the humans like before fire? I mean, what was life like? Secondly, this morning, Spirit is so funny. I'm sitting there outside having a little bit of, breakfast and my decaf coffee, and I hear a bullfrog. And I'm not kidding. So this is
Obviously, that story was wanted to be a
right.
spirit. Was like, you need to share this because it just reminded me the gift of fire. We had, just celebrated around this gift of fire and this beautiful community, and then we went
Right.
right into like
Whoa.
primal vulnerability right there.
Yeah, Spirit's like, you think, it's always a humbling experience.
Makes me think about all of the creation stories that we have around the gift of fire and how that was given to us. Um, you know, this element to use that has become such an integral part of our lives and survival. Like
Right.
we can't survive without fire. If you're somewhere and it gets really cold, hypothermia can set
Right.
in. I mean, you need the heat of that fire to keep you warm, to potentially cook any food that you might have. It's not easy to just create.
Right. And also think about this. We have a ball of fire in the sky that we rely on every single
Yeah.
day that we don't think about. And a lot of people complain about it. It's the sun's in my eyes and it's too hot and blah, blah, blah. But, if we didn't have the sun, there are a lot of indigenous songs to honor the sun, um, because it is the giver of life. It's I really feel the elements are givers of life. Without water, without fire, without air, and
Yeah.
without the earth, we are not possible.
At the summer solstice,
Yeah.
we celebrate our longest day of light from the sun. If we didn't have that sun to warm our earth, we would not be growing crops, we would not have food. And we've had many ice ages that have taken place, on the earth because we
Right.
weren't getting enough sunlight. It's just frozen tundra.
That's right. And we're going through a melting period now. So, yeah. Fire is a spirit that, has always spoken to me. Like I said before, it was speaking to me as a child. And it's a very powerful spirit. When we have a fire ceremony, as shamanic practitioners, the fire is such a powerful spirit that it reads your heart, it reads your soul, it knows what you're longing for and what you need to release into it. And it's, if you ask it, it will show up.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does.
Yeah,
So Tina, what are some of the gifts? Because you journeyed to the spirit of fire, and I know I had a lot to say to
I
you.
did.
And so, what are some of the gifts that fire shared with you that it has for us?
So the spirit of fire said, my gift to humankind is warmth from the colder climates, and I have given the gift of cooking to humans. For thousands of years, I have brought together communities for healing, for worshiping, and for sacred ceremony. With your open heartedness, I also have the power to read your heart with my strong, focused eye. So that was just sort of something that I said, which
Yeah, when we stepped into doing these episodes, they're still speaking to me. Like
they
it's
very much
just
are.
wanting to be acknowledged and aware and
Yeah,
relationship, relationship, relationship. And
no kidding.
that's, I think as practitioners, it's something that, walking this kind of spiritual pathway with shamanism is about being in relationship with all things. And
Right. Yeah, and what I was remarking on before we recorded today is that even as I worked with clients this week, the elements were speaking loudly in the journeys, even though I was doing healing ceremonies for them. Like the spirit of fire came in, the spirit of water came in. It was like, wow, this is really amazing. So once you invite them in to really work with, they become allies.
yeah. And it's interesting because I think they do show up even in our healing. I know so many different times that I've seen water or other elements show up in a healing for a client to transmute, to transform, to take some of that, dis-ease away and to offer healing. It's amazing gift that they bring us all the time that, we just don't necessarily have with us in our day-to-day conscious mindset of,
Right.
that we go about because we take so much of what we do have in modern times for granted. Our ancestors suffered a lot more than we do now because they had a lot more they had to work for every day to
Hmm.
just survive on a
Right.
daily basis. And we have so many more comforts now that we don't have to function in the same way. And I think we're also just more distracted because we have so much more going on and we have
Right.
so many more devices and we're so busy and a lot of us are overscheduled and trying to juggle so many different things in our lives.
But on the flip side too, they obviously the ancestors didn't take these elements for granted, but they also had a healthy respect for something like water, because it could be a storm or a tsunami or a forest fire that would decimate everything. So they had a healthy respect for this stuff. So, it is when you live more in tune and live with nature on a daily basis, you have more of a connection with her and a more respect for the power that her elements have.
So, Tina, when you were journeying to the spirit of fire, what challenges or shadow aspects did fire share with you that it has?
So, fire, the spirit of fire said, although humans have honored me, you also fear me. You want to control me without the understanding that I, like the other elements, bring balance to this earth. That is our task. But in the eyes of humans, I have been labeled as raging, destructive, furious, wrathful. Even the word fuming you use has been used for your human emotion of anger, which skews the perception of who I truly am. The shadow side of me is of one perception. I am simply acting on behalf of the Earth's need for balance. Although I do take the lives of sentient beings as well as humans, it is simply for the purpose of balance. There are times, however, where humans have not respected my power and have created me without the knowledge of how to calm my flames.
Wow. That's heavy. That's kind of heavy to sit with.
And as we said before in the beginning of the series, we're just the mouthpieces for these elements, and some of this information isn't meant to be very comfortable, but they are speaking, so it would behoove us to listen.
Yeah. They have a lot to say and a lot they want to share.
As soon as I journeyed, it was like right there. So
That's awesome. What are some ways that fire works with the other elements? How did that fire share that with you?
So Fire said, we work interchangeably, like a team with one intention, but with different powers. For instance, I am fed by the element of air and by earth, and water tames me, but I can also conquer water and allow it to be evaporated up into the air. So it's all interchangeable.
I love that. Really love that. And Tina, what are some ways that fire shared with you that we could connect with fire in our daily lives that we may not have thought of before?
Yeah, when I asked the spirit of fire, it said, put aside your fear of me and replace it with respect. When you light a candle, you are invoking my spirit. When you create a fire for yourself, whether it's in your chimney or your fire pit outside, know that I am a spirit that lives throughout all these flames. See me as a silent witness who can read your spirit. And when you ask something of me, particularly in letting go of something or manifesting a certain desire, your words are whispers. But when I read your heart and the strong intention, know that I take your asking of me seriously.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah, pretty much blew me away.
Yeah, it was really, I found it to be very emotional. Like it just very moving to
Yeah.
engage with the elements that, I worked with water and earth and you got fire and air. And I mean, it was really moving to me to be in the presence of the spirit of those elements and to be given their message when we
Yeah.
ask them these
Yeah.
questions. And so, what message did the spirit of fire want you to share with our listeners?
Fire said, I am the great transformer. Many humans fear fire because it can be destructive, decimating homes, material possessions, and even lives. But just like the other elements, there is a balance I bring to the world. Small, controlled fires can help create fertile soil and create potential for prosperous new growth. To the ancients, the spirit of fire was a powerful agent of change and a symbol of death and rebirth. When performing ceremony with me, I will reach your heart, your soul, and your intention. When you do anything intentionally with me, you must be very clear and focused and trust that what is being asked of me will, without a doubt, create change.
Wow. Love that. It's a lot to sit with. I'm just trying to take a moment to like absorb it.
I don't even have words as a human I just have to soak the words up.
Yeah. When I journeyed to the spirit of fire, fire said, I am the great transformer, a spirit of rebirth. Many people fear me for they don't understand my place in the great dance. I consume all in my path, but leave space for rebirth and new beginnings in my wake. I enrich the soil, transforming the old to make way for the new. I bring light to the darkness and warmth against the chill, but you must be of clear intent when you choose to feed me, for I have an unpredictable will. Come and dance with me and learn to be free. Come to know the gifts I have to share, but always remember to treat me with respect so that balance can be kept.
Oh, wow. That's
It's
so,
really interesting because, I hadn't seen or known what
no,
you got from Spirit, and then to see what I'm getting very similar messages in a slightly
no
different
kidding.
way, that this is really reinforces that the message that the Spirit of Fire wanted shared.
No kidding. I mean, just to reiterate to listeners, we do not share what we get from Spirit. Really, we don't look at each, we have the same, notes, but we don't really look at each other's notes because it's kind of personal. And so this is when we air it, it's sort of like, my gosh, we just started with I am the great transformer in both of us. And that's the same thing that's the Spirit of Fire said to us, and about
Wow.
respect and rebirth and all of that. So, you can't make this up. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And I don't even remember, because when I'm in a journey, I'm in the journey and then I just kind of channel what I'm given,
Me
and
too.
I put it down and I don't see it again until we come to read it. And I'm sitting here and I didn't remember any of
Me
what
neither.
I get. As I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is it.
I think you and Ivory channel the same way. We kind of listen to drumming in our earbuds and then start to just write, which is amazing that we do it the same way.
Yeah. This is when I get a chance to sit with it, is when we talk about it on the podcast. Like I put it in, I do the journey. And once I'm in that space in the journey, I say, stay with me
Yeah,
while I go type it,
right.
and I type it down and I just stay in that state. And I really don't remember a lot when I
I
journey.
don't
And that's
either.
how I really know it's kind of an authentic,
Right.
like my brain didn't make this up and
Yeah,
create some story that's retained. A lot of the times it's like, what?
right.
So to come back, and then I just love seeing the similarities of the messaging that comes through.
No
Like
kidding.
I've been in a number of circles when we've been learning and we've all journeyed on the same question, and then seeing the threads that people get that are all very similar, but yet some new unique perspective that comes through each individual. And it's just mind-blowing and amazing to me that there's a common theme, a common message being given, but that it's shared differently, and it gives you these different opportunities to see it in a multifaceted way.
No kidding. Well said. Thank you. This has been amazing. So, your journey prompt on our website, shamansafterdark.com, if you know how to perform a shamanic journey, is go to your helping spirits and ask, please take me to the Spirit of Fire, and ask the Spirit of Fire what strengths and power it possesses that you might adopt into your life at this time.
Oh, I love
And
that question.
yeah, and please drop us a line on our website. We'd love to hear from you.
So we hope that you're going to join us next week as we continue our discussion about the elements, and we're going to be exploring the element of earth. So until next time, everyone, keep on shining your light.